Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to a Betty Adams Sunday Off. By my normal schedule, this should be a Yu Yu Hakusho review, but that didn't happen. I am too tired to extemporize, so here is a clip from Flying Sparks, now available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Excerpt from Flying Sparks. Sometime in the past, some unknown force had carved a shallow trench across the side of one of the small mountains that dotted the wilderness. It had puzzled Drake at first. The scour was nearly parallel to the ridgeline, entirely the wrong angle to be an old rock slide, and terminated in a near perfectly circular clearing at the lower end. Centuries-old Douglas firs around the space abruptly gave way to a second ring, only a few decades old. Those were in turn beginning to produce cones and a smattering of knee-high saplings closer to the center. The rest of the space was completely given over to wildflowers. No matter what season Drake visited it, he found a riot of life. There had been an early spring, and many herbs that normally would have waited a month or more were already in full bloom in the mountain meadow. A white wave of foam flower washed in from the deep forest surrounding the clearing, sending up knee-high stalks covered in the delicate white blooms. Late trillium hid close to the roots of the great firs, many having shed their white corollas and begun to put forth their bulbous seed heads. Fuzzy white baneberry blossoms nodded gently in the breeze. A riot of yellow and purple spread across the ground as vetch and buttercups and a host of clovers competed for space in the open sun. Great stalks of lupine as high as his head thrust up their purple and blue proudly from thick clusters of palm-shaped leaves. Pink shooting stars and violet harebells crouched under the protection of the larger plants. Indian paintbrush lit the scene with flames of red and orange. Where a spring seeped into the meadow, elephant's head flared neon pink, and cordalis bushes put forth blushing blooms. Pale green wild orchids stood along the wet spots, and the swarms of bees danced from them to the glacier lilies. Sometimes as he bent over a tiny blossom and traced the intricate network of veins in the petals, drank in the scent, and felt the smooth surface of the leaves, an otherworldly feeling would come over him. It was as if there was another world just out of range of his senses. If he could only really look, the thin illusion that was blocking his sight would slip away and reveal the real world underneath it. "Look, Awiegwe," his father would whisper, pointing at a deer mouse perched on a fallen log. "What does it see?" Ewiegwa would screw up his face and squint, trying to find the answer to the question. Ewiegwe had often wondered how so many flowers had come to be in the relatively small area. He had identified dozens of species, and there were more he had yet to determine. The clearing was always the first place to bloom and the last to go dormant. Many of the flowers seemed to utterly defy their usual blooming patterns. However, as time passed, he had simply come to accept it. It was one of the small good things that brought back the memories of his father. If it didn't quite follow the rules Amma had taught him, well, an impossible clearing in the mountains wasn't a place for rules. The particular bloom that Abuelita had requested had taken full advantage of the early sun and had already put forth a few cobalt blueberries, easily spotted at the edge of the clearing in the delicate sea of white flowers. However, before he left the shade of the forest for the meadow, the youth paused and closed his eyes. Bol wasn't always here, but he was often enough that Awiegwa always checked for him. Carefully, he reconstructed the clearing in his mind, marking every tree and boulder on the edge. 3 years he had been coming here, and each time it was easier to recreate the clearing. Breathing evenly, he opened his eyes, letting the mental image merge with the actual. There was a brief moment of confusion as details like the play of light through branches and the trembling of small clusters of flowers fixed themselves. But there was only one truly jarring note. Awiegwa didn't let his eyes focus on the disparity. He never did anymore, but a warm smile spread across his features as he slipped silently into the meadow. He was here. As the youth moved in a low crouch, gathering the first fruits of the Queen's cup, he let his peripheral vision linger on a particular snag. There was nothing obviously interesting about it other than the fact that it had not been there the last time Awiegwa was here. He had named the wanderer Bole because it most often appeared as a thick tree trunk, sometimes living, sometimes dead. Occasionally it would be a boulder or simply a mound in the dirt. Often it wasn't in the clearing at all.
Drake McCarty's leg was shattered, deep in the wilderness. As the flash flood closed over him, something alien pulled him from the waters. A military base that shouldn't exist. An ancient warrior with secrets of his own. Drake returns to his family with a whole leg and the burden of a secret he doesn't understand. In the forest around them, someone is watching, and something followed him home. Flying Sparks. 90,000 words of science fantasy adventure. The first novel in the Dying Embers universe is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and from the author as a signed copy. Get your copy now and step into a world where dragons walk the forest, aliens lurk on the mountain, and things go boomp in the night.
Escape into another world with the writings of author Betty Adams. 2 worlds, one of utter absurdity, one of dramatic tension, both alike in aliens absolutely astounded by human behavior. Humans are weird, short, absurd science fiction stories. Flying sparks, dragons, aliens, and things that go boomp in the night.
Books available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and at authorBettyAdams.com for a signed copy.